All right, my secondary math 1 class, we are going to be talking more about slope. Okay, so we're going to be practicing a few things that we've learned, and then we are going to learn some new things as well. Okay, so today we're going to be practicing writing linear equations. Okay, so linear equations usually have two things in them: slope and an intercept, either an x or a y-intercept. Okay, so for numbers 1 and 2, it's asking us to find the slope of the line through each pair of points. Okay, so we're finding the slope when given 2 points. Okay, and when we have to find the slope given 2 points, we have to use the slope formula. Okay, so let's write that down. Our slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, awesome. So now that we know our formula, we can go ahead and label our coordinate points on 1 and 2. Okay, so if this is my first coordinate point, this is going to be labeled x1 and y1. If this is my second coordinate point, this is labeled x2 and y2. And I'm going to do the same thing on number 2, x1 and y1, x2 and y2. Okay. So now that we've labeled what numbers go with each values in our formula, we can go ahead and just fill in the formula and solve. Okay, so we'll zoom in on number 1 and fill in our formula. So our formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so let's fill in the top first. So on the top I have y2. So my y2 value lines up with 16. Okay, subtracting my y1 value, which is negative 2. Okay, so we filled in the top. Now let's fill in the bottom. I have x2, which is 3, subtracting my x1, which is negative 9. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve for the top. I have 16 minus a negative. What happens with this double negative? Turns into a positive, or now we're adding. So now 16 plus 2 turns into 18 on top. Okay, now let's look at the bottom. We have 3 minus a negative 9. Again, we have that double negative, which turns into a positive or addition. 3 plus 9 is 12. Okay, so there's a few things that we could reduce this fraction by. One thing I see is that both of these numbers, 18 and 12, are both even numbers, meaning we can divide each of them by 2. Okay, so if I'm dividing the top one by 2, I have 18 divided by 2, which is going to give me 9. Okay, 12 divided by 2 is going to give me 6. Okay, so I have 9 over 6. Is there any number that we can divide both 9 and 6 by that you can think of? Okay, we can divide both of these ones now by 3. We can reduce it even more. Okay, 9 divided by 3 is going to give me 3. And 6 divided by 3 is going to give me 2. Okay, we cannot reduce it anymore, so our final slope for number 1 is 3 over 2. Perfect. Okay, let's do the same thing for number 2. So I have y2 minus y1 on top over x2 minus x1 on bottom. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill in our values. So I have y2 for my first spot. That lines up with 17. Minus my y1, which is 5. On bottom I have x2, which is 13. Minus x1, which is negative 3. Okay, so on top I have 17 minus 5, which is going to give me 12. And then on bottom I have 13 minus a negative. Okay, when we have a double negative, it turns into a positive or addition. So 13 plus 3 is 16. Okay, now we have to reduce our fraction. We have to make it as small as it can be. So I see that 12 and 16 are both even numbers, so we can divide them both by 2. Okay, on top, 12 divided by 2 is going to give me 6. 16 divided by 2 is going to give me 8. Okay, can we reduce it any more? Yes, they're both even again, so we can divide them by 2 again. Okay, 6 divided by 2 is going to give me 3 on top, 8 divided by 2, 4 on bottom. And our reduced fraction is 3 over 4. Perfect. Okay, numbers 3 through 6. It's asking us to find the slope of each line. Now, all of these equations are written in what's called slope-intercept form. So let's go over here and actually identify what slope-intercept form is. Okay, so let's write that on our paper. Slope-intercept form. Okay, when it's written in slope-intercept form, it's always written as y equals m times x plus b. Okay, so now we have to identify what do these letters mean. Okay, so the y and the x are always going to stay y and x. Okay, but the m and the b are what change. So the m, whatever is always right in front of this x, is going to be our slope. Our b is going to be our y-intercept. It's the reason we call it slope-intercept form is because it tells us our slope and our y-intercept. Okay, so if it's asking us to find the slope of each line, and our slope is always right in front of the x, what is my slope for number 3? It's going to be negative 1/3. Okay, because it was right in front of the x. What about number 4? What is our slope for number 4? If our slope is always right in front of the x, where's our x? Okay, well, y equals 2 technically can be written as y equals 0x plus 2. Okay, so knowing this, what is our slope? Our slope is 0 because when we times 0 by x or 0 by anything, it just turns into a 0. So all we're left with is y equals 2. Okay, so again, whenever you can't find the x, our slope is 0. Okay, what about number 5? What is our slope for number 5? Right in front of the x, so we know our slope is 7 over 3. Okay, and what about our number 6? What is our slope for number 6? Okay, this one's kind of weird. Do you see a y in this equation? No, we don't. So this one means our slope is actually what we call undefined, meaning there is no slope. Okay, so our slope is undefined. Okay, awesome. So now for numbers 7 through 12, we are asked to take these equations, which are written in what's called standard form, where our x and our y are on the same side as our equal sign of our equal sign. We need to make it so our y is all by itself. Put it into slope-intercept form. Okay? So we're going to have to rewrite some things. We're going to have to move some things. So if we zoom in on number 7, so we're looking at our side with our y. We can ignore 2 because it's already over there, right? We don't need to worry about him. Okay, so I'm going to start with what's farthest away from my y, and it's going to be this 2x, positive 2x. Now, how do I get rid of, or what is the opposite of positive 2x? It's going to be negative 2x. Okay, so that gets rid of him over there, and it moves him over there. Okay, so I am left with negative y equals negative 2x because we always want to write our term with our x first. Okay, so negative 2x is going to come first. Positive 2, which was already over there, comes next. Okay, so look at my y. Is my y all by itself? No, I still have this negative sign, which technically means negative 1 times y. Well, how do I get rid of times by negative 1? I'm going to divide by -1. Okay, and that moves them over here, and everything needs to be divided by -1. Okay, so what I'm left with is y equals, okay, a -2x divided by a -1 is going to give me a +2x. +2 divided by a -1 is going to give me a -2. Well, look at this little rule that we just discovered. Okay, whenever you have a negative on your y, what it really does is it changes the signs. Okay, meaning it took -2x, turned it to a +2x, and it took +2 and turned it to a -2. So we know our final answer, our linear equation, is written in slope-intercept form as y equals 2x minus 2. Okay. What about number 8? What do we need to move on number 8? Okay, this one's kind of a trick question, right? We don't need to move anything. Okay, it's already in slope-intercept form. Y equals 5. We didn't have to move anything. Okay, so let's look at number 9. So there's a couple things on the same side as my y that I need to move. Let's start with the farthest one from my y. It's going to be this 13x. What is the opposite of positive 13x? It's going to be negative 13x. Okay, so it's going to move him over here. So I'm left with negative y equals, write your 1 with your x first, negative 13x minus 5 was still on that side. Okay, well, what trick did we just learn with the negative? What does it do to our signs on the other side? It changes them. Okay, so that negative is going to change both those signs. So we get y equals, because it moved over there, and now we have a positive 13x and a positive 5. Easy peasy. Just changes those signs on the other side. Okay, what about number 10? Do we need to rewrite it? No, actually, this one is already in slope-intercept form, but there's no y. We'll talk about that in a second. So we're just going to leave this as x equals 0. Okay, so let's look at number 11. Okay, few things we need to move here. So let's start with the farthest one from my y. It's going to be this 5x. What is the opposite of a positive 5x? It's going to be negative 5x. Okay, moved them over there. So now I have 6y equals negative 5x, because we want to write the term with our x first, minus 12 that was already over there. Okay, so is my y all by itself? No, it's not. It still has this times by 6 attached. So we need to do the opposite of times by 6, which is divide by 6. And everything needs to be divided by 6. Okay, so I'm left with y equals, okay, we cannot reduce negative 5 over 6, so guess what? It just stays negative 5 over 6x. Okay, but what is negative 12 divided by 6? We can reduce that one. What is negative 12 divided by 6? That's going to be negative 2. And there we go. Okay, let's do number 12. Couple things on the same side as my y. Let's start with the farthest one. It's going to be this positive x. Well, what is the opposite of positive x? It's going to be negative x. That's how we're going to move him over there. Okay, so now I'm left with 2y equals negative x. We want to write the one with our x first, minus 4 that was already over there. Okay, my y is not by itself. We need to get rid of this times by 2. So what is the opposite of times by 2? divide by 2. Okay, so that gets rid of him over here, and we got to divide everything over there. Okay, so we're left with y is all by itself equals negative 1 over 2, which we can't reduce, so it just stays negative 1/2 x. But can we reduce, or what is the answer to negative 4 divided by 2? What is negative 4 divided by 2? It's going to give me negative 2. Okay, but we're not quite done. Back up in our instructions, it tells us to then find the slope. Okay, so if we know our slope is always right in front of our x, let's go through these and find our slope now that they're in slope-intercept form. Okay, so what is my slope for number 7? What number is right in front of the x? It's going to be 2. Okay, let's look at number 8. What is my slope if it's the number right in front of the x for number 8? Remember, technically, this can be written as y equals 0x plus 5. So now, what is my slope? Slope is 0 because just like we talked about a few minutes ago, whenever we multiply anything by 0, it disappears, so we're just left with y equals 5. Okay, what about on number 9? What is my slope for number 9? What is the number that is right in front of my x? It's going to be 13. Okay, well, what about 10? Okay, if you're confused about what our slope is, look back at number 6. Okay, remember how we don't have a y in here? There's no y. That means our slope is undefined. Okay, what about number 11? What is our slope for number 11? What is the number right in front of my x? It's going to be that whole piece, which is negative 5 over 6. Okay, and last example, what is my slope for number 12? My number right in front of my x is negative 1/2. Okay, those are your notes for today. There is an assignment that goes with it on Canvas.